For more on this, let's bring in epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa, Raywat Deonandan. He joins me from Ottawa. And thank you, Ray, for joining me. So obviously it is concerning when we see the medical officer of health in BC saying we're teetering on the edge of a spike and a big surge, and then also Quebec. But the numbers are also going up, or at least well over 100 in Ontario now for several days. So how concerning is it when you look at that as a whole?
Well, in Canada, it's always been a story of four provinces: BC, Quebec, Alberta, and Ontario, and that hasn't changed at all. But Quebec and BC are looking pretty problematic right now. Keep in mind, BC is about a third the size of Ontario, and Quebec is half the size of Ontario population-wise, and yet their numbers are on par, if not higher. So those provinces in particular are having a bit of a crisis. And Ontario, we are getting there. And so it's imperative that we keep the numbers as low as possible before the school season starts. I can't stress that enough. That's how we keep schools safe, by keeping it out of the community.
And what about the fact that these new cases, I think even in the majority in Ontario, are younger and in between the ages of, say, 20 and 39. And the median age is 41 if you take in all the numbers across the country. What about that younger generation? What's going on?
That's a really good question, and that's exactly the right analysis that needs to be done. So that is where the growth is in the young people who are socializing. Keep in mind that young people are more or less risk averse, rather, and in greater need of socialization. So those two characteristics put together are a recipe for disaster when it comes to an infectious disease like this. So the big concern, though, is that that demographic will give it to the older, more vulnerable demographic. And we're starting to see that in BC already, where the numbers in the older demographic, like those over 45, is starting to creep up. So I expect it to get a little more dire as the schools open up in the next couple of months.
It's also emboldens those people who don't feel like, you know, the safety plan in place in respective provinces is up to snuff in terms of sending the kids back. But Francois Legault, and I was just mentioning before I introduced you, was saying he's not considering closing schools, but he would consider potentially closing bars and limiting public gatherings outside.
Oh, that is the right thing to do, absolutely. Remember, the number one best way to keep schools safe is to keep the community caseload as low as possible. That means remove the opportunities for large indoor gatherings. Bars are great, but they're not a necessity. They're mostly a luxury. Concerts are a luxury. Any opportunity for indoor super spreading activities should be minimized, if not removed outright. I think it's the right move.
How dangerous is COVID fatigue? People just sick and tired of it and saying, I want to go to a gathering. I want to see people.
I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now, is COVID fatigue manifesting as impromptu, ill-advised large gatherings, and that's what's driving the increase in cases amongst young people. So how do we combat that? I think with a better deployed, more diverse, comprehensive communication strategy, and maybe more opportunities for distance and online socialization. We have to be creative. I have no obvious solutions in my pocket, but I think as a society, we can figure out ways to combat fatigue while keeping everyone safe.
What do you think of the COVID Alert app? I mean, it's only available in 2 provinces so far, Ontario and Newfoundland, and the uptake in Ontario hasn't been all that good. What do you think about that?
Well, the modeling suggests that we need about 60% uptake to make it a quote-unquote game changer, and I don't think we'll get there because the highest uptake we'll see anywhere around the world is about 40%. But it helps. It helps a little bit, and every little bit is useful. Now, it's just one tool in the larger toolbox, and it can't replace meat and flesh real person contact tracing. But for those people in particular who have a lot of contacts throughout the day, young people, urban people, active people, and those with poor memories, it can be a really useful tool. So I encourage everyone to take it, to download it rather. And we've already seen a couple of cases where it's been useful. It's alerted people who otherwise did not know they've been exposed and found out later they've actually tested positive. So it does work. And the risk to privacy is vanishingly small if it exists at all. So I cannot stress this enough. Download it if you can, if your phone can handle it, because it will help even a little bit.
Good advice. And thank you, Ray Deonandan. Thank you very much for joining us.